Okay, this is Launch One Podcast. We are live here with David Powell. David is a jack of all trades when it comes to archery, bow hunting, and even more, and he's pretty good at what he does. I think this is going to be a really exciting conversation, David. I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Thanks very much for having me on this evening, Mason. Hey, last time I saw you, we were out in the Louisville area at a tack event called the Inky.
Yes, we were. That was a pretty fun event. It was a little bit hot, but it was fun when tack shoots are always fun. In my episode with Chad, I was praising it kind of a good bit, just the whole tack lifestyle. But
Did
so
you see the article that was published today? I think it was
I did not.
in one of those magazines. They put a link on Tack's Instagram. Really cool article for someone who's never experienced a tack event. It's very informative, very descriptive, and of course, at the end, it makes you want to go.
Yeah, huh? That's interesting. I have to look that up. Um, so I know we talked at Indiana about this, and I kind of forget the numbers, but you've been to more tack shoots than anybody else out there, right?
I've
Where are you
shot
at
more.
now?
There are a few people who have attended. More vendors have attended, and Monica and Sean have both attended more than I have. But as far as shooting in the events themselves, um, I've shot 45 so far.
45. Wow. And how many years have you been shooting tack?
I think that goes back about 8 years, maybe a little longer, but I think it's around 8 years.
Yeah. Okay. So tack, let's see, tack has been around for 12, 13 years now, something like that.
I think so. It started in the West, and I was watching YouTube videos and things of that nature that talked about the Total Archery Challenge, and it started at Snowbird, and there was only one event for a long time, and then Sean and Monica began to expand it, and they were going to have one in the East. I saw it was going to be in Pennsylvania, and so I went up to Seven Springs and attended that one. That was the first one I ever attended. I was pretty well hooked. The next summer, I shot Pennsylvania, Michigan, and my youngest son Kenny and I went out to Utah and shot at Snowbird.
Yeah, wow.
And
So you were full force right into it as soon as as soon as you went to that first tack. What was the attendance like back then?
so the attendance was still pretty good, although it hadn't grown to the magnitude that it is right now. I'll give you an example. I think so. That second year that I shot, I started shooting for the truck, and I think that was the first year that they began to offer the truck in the format that they're doing it now. And I believe this is accurate. I'll give a range for the truck. There was between 30, call it 35 and 45 shooters that qualified, and I qualified that year. I did not win the truck, as we all know, but this past year you qualified. Congratulations. And I
Yes.
think they had to cut it off at 250 qualifiers.
Yes, that was interesting this year. So I've been in with one entry for the past 3 years, I'd say. And this year was really cool. I thought that was cool how they did that drawing. If you didn't watch
Yeah.
it online, we were in person watching it. It was in the Indiana attack that we were at here. What was that? A few weeks ago now. Um,
2 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago.
yeah, so that was really cool. I thought like being able to stand there and watch how that went, and it's kind of nerve wracking when you're right there and about to win $100,000 plus truck. But
Yeah.
it's fun.
So I've qualified 5 times over the years. I haven't shot for the truck for the last couple of years. I just haven't felt like my setup was right. And then I did decide I was going to shoot one of the events that I was going to try to qualify this year. Wind picked up, and I kind of missed my window. But for the most part, I haven't been happy with my setup. I've been playing around with some things and making a few changes.
What
You know what that's all about.
what bow have you been running at TAC?
Um, I'm shooting the I'm shooting the 33 inch Matthews V3.
Okay, and that bow is kind of a smoother cam. I know that it was
Hmm.
popular amongst 3D shooters for a hunting bow,
Yeah.
that is. But yeah, okay.
I will tell you though that I had a I I can never keep them straight. But the year before that bow came out, it was the Matthews maybe VX3. I may have
Something
them backwards,
something like
but it
that.
was it
Yeah.
was a 31-inch bow,
Okay.
and I believe I shot that bow better than any bow I've ever owned.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
it
so.
just fit me. I was comfortable with it, and of course I shot it a lot, but I was very comfortable with the setup and the arrow selection that I had. I felt really good about that.
So that's pretty interesting, and that's something I'm about to kind of work with a little bit. Is I've pretty much shot the same bow since I started shooting competitively. And I've gotten really used to it, and I've really liked it, but I really don't know. I've never shot another bow, so I can't say I like one more than the other. And I just ordered a new bow. It should be in the next week or so, and a target bow.
Are
And
you
I'm
willing to say just what that is just yet?
uh not yet. This episode will probably be
Okay.
posted after I get it, but we'll go to my you can go to my Instagram and find it when
Okay,
I
that's
let you
fair.
know. But yeah, so I'm gonna try it, and it's gonna be interesting to set up another bow because I mean I know exactly how to get this one to tune. I mean I've messed with it so many times. I've been through like 4 sets of strings on it. Like I've shot the crap out of this thing. But what for what reasons did you think that that older bow shot better for you?
I don't know if it's. I think the string angle was really it suited me well. The 33, the string angle is not quite as deep as the 31, but the 31 was a whole lot more shallow than say I've got a 27 to 28
Mm-hmm.
inch bows, and
Yeah.
and they're really sharp and acute. I use those bows mainly for tree stand or saddle hunting, mainly whitetails. Depending on what I happen to be shooting, whether it's an event or it's a hunt, I might switch back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What are
like
you?
if I'm out west, I might choose maybe for coos deer. I actually last year I shot that 33-inch Matthews.
Yeah.
Um, but no, that's not true. 2 years ago, I shot the 33-inch Matthews. Last year, I actually shot a PSE Levitate, one of the
Oh
W
yeah.
bows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, what's your setup look like this year for whitetail?
For whitetail, I've been working. I've got two bows that I'm trying to work with. I'm going to leave one in the east and one in the west. As you know, I travel quite a bit, and I usually travel with at least one bow, sometimes multiple. But to try to make things easy, I typically leave a vehicle in the west also, and so I'll put it in storage out west, and then I'll put the bow in storage out there. I think my western bow is probably going to be that Levitate.
Okay.
Um, but as far as, well, let me back up. Um, and as far as elk is concerned, I'm going to shoot that Levitate. I've got it set up the way I want for elk with the sight and everything. But as far as whitetail is concerned, I'm going to shoot a PSC Mach 30. I'm going to leave that one in the west for whitetail in the Midwest and Western states. And then I'm going to use I've got I think it's a VXR. It's a 27-inch axle to axle Matthews.
Yeah.
And I've been messing around with it lately, and I just have taken a real liking to it.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, you said you've got vehicles in east and west, and
Mm-hmm.
like the thing with you, David, is I've never seen you in the same place twice. Like it seems like I'm seeing you at all these tack shoots all across the country, at the ATA show, at this place and that place. Like you travel a lot, and you've got that red van, and that's pretty cool rig you got. But as far as like, well, elk season's coming up.
Mhm.
What are your plans for elk season here? For as far as like
Well,
lodging and stuff.
I'll set up base camp in what I call the gypsy wagon. That's my big red van. It's converted with a living quarters in the back, and it's got solar on top, and it's pretty self-contained. And your dad will be in camp
Yeah.
while I'm there. Also, as well as some of our other Chad Sylvester, whom you've had on recently, and John Hyde will be there. We'll set up base camp. I think it's around 8,200 feet, and then we all take our spike camps from there and go into the back country and stay, 2, 3, 4 nights, and come back in and resupply and head back out. And everybody just kind of rotates in and out as they can. But you can hunt up to a little over 10,000 if you want to or need to, and you can hunt down as low as maybe 75, 74, 7,500, depending on if the elk are down low or up high. We've had weather at certain years when we've been out there and seen a little snow, and maybe they've moved down a little bit. One year I had them on a bunch of alfalfa down low, but last year they seemed to be hovering around that 8,000 foot mark.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a kill spot picked out this year? Or are you looking to just go and see where the elk are? What's your game plan?
Well, depending on what I find when I get out there, or maybe I should say, depending on what the other guys find when they get out there and give me some feedback, I'll make a plan. But I have a place in mind. There's a little spring creek that comes down between some of the mountains, and there's a great place there to set up my spike camp. I use a little canvas cutter spike camp, and there's a good place there. If all is well, I think I stand a good chance of getting on elk in that area. If I'm getting intelligence from the other guys who are going to be out there before me that I need to move back over to the south, maybe some of that alfalfa country, then I'll do that. But I'm hoping between those two spots. But if I really need to, I can get up on top of the peaks and run the ridges up over 10,000 and see if I can locate them up there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that area had that high peaks. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So this is something that I don't think the rest of the crew knows yet. I have been watching a pretty good whitetail for the last, and I guess this will be the third season that I've really taken note of this particular deer. It's been around longer than that, but I've taken note of him. And the Kansas whitetail season opens September the 15th. Now, in the past, I've always hunted first couple evenings of Kansas season, and then I head to Idaho. This deer has really gotten my attention. And I hope to go out a little earlier this year, but I just don't think I can pull away from that whitetail. I'm going to hunt at least the first 3 evenings of Kansas season before I head west and see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's a very significant deer.
Okay, so I said this on a recent podcast. My game plan this year is to I guess kind of pattern these deer and get done and over with on the opener. And that's in Ohio. That's like the first week of October. I think it opens the 29th of September, something like that. It might be the 27th this year. But that's kind of my plan. It's a little bit earlier in Kansas, which is interesting. But I think playing the pattern game, that's kind of new for me. I've really only ever hunted rut patterns. But that'll be interesting to see what might come of that buck. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to try to get him early on bedding to food. This buck is a loner. He isolates from all the other bachelor groups this time of year. He's off by himself. He's got a layer that's getting smaller, a core area that's smaller and smaller every year. And we'll see what happens. But my plan is to try to get that done early in September, or mid-September, early in the season, mid-September. Mm-hmm. Head out west and join the guys out there. And then I intend to hunt Illinois this year. I hunt West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky each year. And then as things wind on, in January I typically spend a good bit of time down in Arizona hunting coos deer on the border.
Yeah.
But all of that is contingent upon me doing something with this whitetail early season. If not, then I don't know if if Illinois and some of those other states are going to take precedent or not, because again, I'll have a hard time leaving this particular buck.
Yeah, that'll be really cool to play out. So you're talking about the behavior of this buck. He's kind of a loner, must be an older deer.
Mm-hmm. He is.
I've heard bits and pieces about the Bootsy buck. I know that deer had some interesting behavior. Tell me about that. I mean, what was that like?
Well, I watched Bootsy for 6 years myself. I took note of Bootsy when it was about 2.5 years old. And I was going through some photos last night to send to a fella who was asking me about it, and I think I came across the first photo that I ever had of the deer. Really strange looking. But Bootsy turned out to be a true hermaphrodite. It had reproductive organs of both male and female.
Okay.
It was 8.5 years old after it was harvested. I thought, after watching it for so many years, I saw it doing what deer do, and I thought that it was an unusual deer. I thought it was an antlered doe. And then whenever the field dressing process came, it turned out there was a little more there than I bargained for.
So how unique is a I don't know, is that a genetic mutation, or how would you describe that? How unique is that?
So I don't know exactly the odds, but there was a gentleman, he's an older gentleman. I talked to him back at the time that Bootsy was harvested, and there was some interest in the media and what have you about that deer. But
Yeah.
his name is John Ozoga, and John was a writer for North American Whitetail and some of the other big publications back in the day. But John was also a biologist, and he did research on some deer in Michigan. But John is also probably the foremost authority on. He's done the most research on hermaphroditic deer. It's a very small body of evidence, but John told me he could not, or I should call him Mr. Azoga. He told me that he could not give me the formal statistics. He had it in a stack of articles that he had written, but at the time we were talking back and forth, he couldn't say exactly, but he said, suffice it to say, David, you have shot a very, very, very rare deer.
Really?
So we went from there, that conversation, and I began to talk to, I was going to have the buck panel scored for Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young. And so I went ahead and sent the skull and the antlers to the guys that were going to score it. And on the appointed day, I showed up. They had been studying the buck because it was very, very unusual. Depending on how you looked at it, it was either 19 or 21 points on it. And when I showed up, they were choosing their words very carefully, and I noticed something was up. I didn't know what it was, but
Yeah.
come to find out, they so at the time I didn't really know this, but I've come to find that it's anyway. Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young have three categories. Everybody knows about the typical category and the non-typical category,
Yep.
and I follow that stuff pretty closely. But it turns out there's a third category. It's
Really?
called freak of nature. Yeah, freak of nature.
Hmm.
And its variety of characteristics can force an animal into the freak of nature category, but in the end, they will not assign a score to it.
Really?
And the configuration of Bootsy's antlers were so unique that it fell into the category of freak of nature, and so therefore it was never assigned a score. But I did go to the Pope and Young biannual convention out in Reno that year, and Bootsy was with me, and we went out there and saw our friend John Dudley out there, who
Yep.
we both have had some interaction with. Anyway, John was keynote speaker that night. But I was talking with the chairman of the scoring committee and then the president at the time of Pope and Young. And that fellow's had been involved in scoring for 14 years with the club, the president had. And I said, so tell me, exactly how rare would you say this is? He said, well, David, there are some specimens around. But in his time of being involved with the club, that was 14 years ago, I've never encountered one. And so I'm sure he's seen thousands of not just whitetails, but a variety of big game animals entered into the books. And he hadn't encountered one at that point in his career that fell into the freak of nature category.
Really?
Than Bootsy.
So this is truly a freak of nature then. I'll have to put a photo up. But yeah, this is a very, very unique looking rack. I mean, it's definitely very unique. I mean, buck of a lifetime, some would say. Hopefully this buck that you're about ready to harvest this season might top Bootsy, but we'll see when the time comes. But
I don't mind telling you, Mason, because I had so much history with the deer, it became very special to me. I don't know if it's special to anybody else.
What was your history?
6 years.
Really?
And I saw the deer. I've got hundreds of photographs of the deer. I've got many, many hours of observation from long range with spotters and then up close and personal, trail camera photos, etc. And I knew when I went out to the ranch, Bootsy was there somewhere.
Yeah.
And the year, it was bittersweet whenever I harvested Bootsy. I was very excited. I was very pleased. I felt it was a very reverent experience, actually.
Yeah.
I was pleased about all of that, but I also felt a bit of remorse that this animal, I won't call it my friend, that this animal that I had paid so much attention to for the last 6 years of my life wasn't going to be out at the ranch anymore.
Yeah.
It's hanging at my house, but and I like to see that. But it still seems like when I go through the gate out there at the ranch that it's just not the same.
Yeah, just a very, very unique animal. So, what was you've been watching that deer for 6 years. That's a long time. Do you know how old Bootsy was?
8.5.
Really? Wow. So, what, when you made the decision to, I'm going to try to harvest this deer this year, what was your game plan? Bedding, feeding, early season, late season?
So I had not been exactly in Bootsy's core area. I was having to watch. I would see Bootsy periodically on the ranch to the south that I was hunting, and then I acquired to the north. And at that time, I was really in Bootsy's, really his core area, right? Its core area. I was hunting another buck on a different farm. It was a true 190 inch, really a significant whitetail. And I had to go over to the other ranch to do some chores one day. While I was over there, there's a ridge I like to park on and glass across a couple different drainages. I looked over there, and there was Bootsy.
Yeah.
And so that was on either November the 3rd or November the 4th. And from that day forward to the end of the season, I hunted that deer 54 days straight.
Wow.
And I was not able to kill it. I did get a couple of actually 3 opportunities where I had marginal shots at the deer, but I didn't take them. I didn't want to take the chance.
Yep.
But I hunted 54 days straight, and that was in 2021. And then in spring of 2022, your dad and John Haidt and some others came out to shed hunt with me.
Yeah.
And I was also sharing the chase, the 54-day chase with Bootsy in 2021 with everybody. And they were giving advice, maybe look here, maybe look there. And I was just always behind the deer. I was hunting where the deer had been rather than where the deer was going to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, when your dad was out there, he looked up at this particular spot. I'm choosing my words carefully. He looked up at this particular spot and he said, "Oh, David, you see that thick area?" And this was in early spring. The trees hadn't really leafed out yet. He said, "You see how thick that is? That would be the perfect ambush spot for you to catch up with Bootsy." And he said, "Access. Look at access. I could come from north to south up over a little drain and pop over the ridge and climb up this tree right in that thick place that he had mentioned. And I should be right there."
Yeah.
But he cautioned me, don't go in there unless the wind is right. And so in 2023, when season opened, it was mid-September again. And I couldn't hunt the first day, wind wasn't right. Second day, I finally hunted on I think it was about the 20th.
Yeah.
It was the first time I would dared to venture in there because the wind finally got to where I needed it to be. And wouldn't you know, I was putting up my one sticks on the tree, getting ready to climb up in my saddle. And I made a little bit of noise, and Bootsy stood up about 70 yards away, stood up out of its bed, and began to walk toward me. Of course, I was keeping the tree between me and the deer.
Yeah.
And I peek around the edge of the tree, and Bootsy just kept coming closer and closer. Bootsy came to, I think, 42 yards, head on. It was a straight shot, and I would not take that shot. And I thought maybe I had given up my opportunity, but I didn't shoot. Bootsy stood there for maybe a minute. Time kind of stands still for me whenever that's going on. I don't really know how long it was, but a long time. Calmly turned, walked right across the exact same trail that it had come in on, stepped in the bed that it got up out of and just disappeared down over the hill.
Wow, that's quite the
That
encounter.
it was
That's
it it was exciting.
yeah, yeah, to say the least, I'd say.
So
I've had
the
some
next
deer.
day,
Go ahead.
the next day I had to leave to go to California for work, and I didn't want to, but I had to. And so I'm out in California getting ready to catch a flight back, and this was on the 28th of September, and I'm standing in LAX, and I get a message on my phone. I look down, and it's Bootsy standing in front of a camera at that same tree that I was had seen him from
Oh,
that on the 20th.
yeah,
And I'm sure the people around me in the airport had no idea what I was so excited about. But
yeah,
I couldn't, that plane couldn't get me back to Kansas quick enough.
yeah, yeah.
And the next day, the wind was right again. I slipped in there, and that evening, about maybe 4 minutes till 6, 4 minutes till 7, maybe 4 minutes till 6, I believe. I saw Bootsy's very distinctive rack coming through some oak brush out in front of me.
Yep.
It took its time, but made its way into 20 and a half yards. There's a trail that crossed, two trails that crossed at 20 and a half yards. And Bootsy got to that point, and I was able to somehow get my bow drawn and lean back around the tree in my saddle and made a clean killing shot.
Yeah.
Bootsy,
What's going through your head? I mean, a shot like that at a deer that you've spent so much time watching and observing, I mean, that's got to be nerve-wracking.
I won't kid you. It was really a special experience. As I say, I'm not exactly sure how I got the bow back, and much less settled the pin, but it seemed to work out. Made a one-shot kill. Bootsy didn't go far. I mean, Bootsy went maybe 65 yards and laid down. When I later recovered the deer, the deer had laid down, watching its back trail as though it was trying to figure out was there a predator or whatever, and expired in its initial bed.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty ideal situation, I'd say. You've got some really
It
cool
worked out really.
pictures. Yeah, you've got some really cool pictures too. I'll put some of those up. But yeah, that's a really unique experience. I've never heard of many deer that have it's hard to get that much history with any deer, let alone one that's as unique as Bootsy. But yeah, that's very interesting. That's very cool. So you're doing a lot of spotting out there, spotting scopes in the evenings, mornings. Have you done any this year?
I've been watching some deer, and that's how I was able to relocate the deer that I've found for my target this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, lo and behold, kind of walked up on the. Well, I didn't walk. Drove up on the deer in my truck. I was going across a pasture field, an overgrown pasture field, taking some tools and things up on the hill to do some work, and basically drove right up to where the deer was laying in the tall grass. It stood up and bounded away about 40 yards, turned, looked right at me, watched me for a few seconds, and then turned and made its way on out of there.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was thinking I was just a farmer, doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. You have to let me know if anything happens there. I'll be looking forward to it. Let's see. Season opens in today's the 26th, 27th. So we've got
Today's 27th.
little over 2 weeks then.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
got a lot of travel to do between now and then. I'm back and forth, but I will be back out in Kansas this weekend. I'm going to string some cameras out as discreetly as I can to try to not disturb the deer, but try my best to get some actual trail cam photos of it. The deer has a very small home range, and I've really only gotten 2 photos of the deer in the past, in the last 3 years that I've been watching it. But I've just never pushed into the heart of that core area. I will tell you that in 2023, on December the 30th, I was in a tree and this deer came up the way. By the way, I call this deer Cowboy.
Okay.
Cowboy came riding in, and I managed to miss that deer at 17 and a half yards.
Mm. Yeah.
The deer didn't seem to even know what happened. I shot about 4 inches over its back, and it just kept on walking and walked right on my life. And at that point, I'm going to say the deer would probably gross low to mid 170s.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, he's put on some serious growth then, and this time I'd
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you about last weekend. You know, I
Yeah.
mentioned I do a lot of travel.
Yep.
Last weekend, I was out in Iowa.
Okay.
Um, I had an invitation to come out to the DeQuistos farm out there and the Lone Wolf guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I'd never been to their place before. And I was there. Joe Miles was there. All the whitetail adrenaline guys were there. And Andre and Cody DeQuisto were there. Several other folks. But the highlight of my trip, the Wenzel brothers were there. I don't know if you're old enough to even know who they are.
Mm-mm.
But Gene and Barry Wenzel.
Okay.
They are iconic in bow hunting circles, and they've always shot traditional bows. They're twin brothers. They're in their 80s now.
Wow.
And Joe Miles financed some filmmakers to, and I guess Joe and some other people put together some resources for these filmmakers to make a documentary about the Wenzel brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there. And it was really a very special film.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's actually been posted online now. It's called Brothers of the Bow. And if you ever
Okay.
get a chance to see it, I would encourage it. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. So in 1984, I was in college and, barely had a dollar to my name. Every dollar was spoken for. But the Wenzel brothers came to Charleston, West Virginia, was near where I lived and went to school. And I spent probably, I don't know, just a few dollars, but money I didn't really have to spare to go and sit in on a seminar. And at that time, that was cutting edge. It
Yeah.
was cutting edge, I'm telling
Yeah.
you. And I sat front row. And these guys, it was a very eye-opening experience. You know, I chased some deer and was pretty avid, mostly with a gun, although I've shot a bow since I was 8. Some bow hunting in there too. But these guys were talking about hunting these big deer and hunting an individual deer. And then they were talking about some of the different strategies and et cetera. And it really opened my eyes. They also talked about some regional differences in antlers and body size.
Yeah.
It was really an eye-opening experience for me. So at the end of the evening, I went forward and I spent some more money I didn't have and bought one of their books. And they signed it for me.
Mm-hmm.
41 years later, this past weekend,
Yeah.
I got the chance to meet them again. And they were kind enough to sign another book for me. And
Really?
I felt like that was very special. I told them that I felt like they were kind of instrumental, one of a few different groups of folks who helped me get on the bigger deer, more mature deer
Yeah.
train. But they were very instrumental in opening my eyes that there's another way out there. And
Yeah.
put me on the path that I'm on.
And I guess guys of that era, I mean, they're a different breed than us new guys hunting with trail cameras and cell cameras and all this stuff. And they're still shooting trad bows. That's really cool. I'd like to have a conversation with them. I bet they've got some great stories.
And they were very generous with their time out there. They were happy to talk about their lives and what they're up to now and how they got to where they are, and even their childhood. I think they grew up, maybe in Pennsylvania, but they had a farm in upstate New York. They started out hunting up there. Their dad got them started as little boys. And at one point in time, then they moved to Montana, and they lived out there for a number of years. And then at a point in time, they both picked up their families and moved again to Iowa. And I think they both now reside in Iowa.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, what's your story? How did you get into hunting? I haven't heard this one.
I grew up in a family that was involved in the outdoors. My grandfather, my dad, both my grandfathers and my dad introduced me to the outdoors at a young age. When I was a kid, my grandfather had a place on the water in Florida, and I didn't realize it, but not everybody got to do some of the things that I was able to do when I was a little boy. And we would go down to Florida, and I would have opportunity to fish. We did some inshore stuff and some offshore stuff, and I was tiny, very little. And my grandfather, or both grandfathers, they became best friends later in their lives. And if they were going somewhere, I had to be with them. And if they wanted to go off somewhere, maybe it was a little more than what I could handle, they had to sneak away so that I wouldn't beg to go with them, or make them feel guilty for not taking me with them. And then in 1975, I think it was 75. I wasn't allowed to have a bow until I was 8. But when I was 8, I was able to get a long bow, and I did some things around the house, shooting in the yard and what have you. And then in 1975, Dad came home with a Bear Polar LTD. It was, it was really top of the line in the day. Yeah. It was top of the line in the day, and a fellow at work was needing some money or something, and Dad bought it from him and brought it home, and we were going to share it. That lasted about a couple of weeks, and it was basically my bow from that point forward.
Yeah.
And that put me on my way. And then a few years later, wasn't too many, I located what turned out, for the area that I grew up in, was a pretty good deer. There were 2 of them running together, and myself and my buddy Ronnie found these deer on a property that we hunted, and we were chasing them with bows in the early season. And one Saturday, I was sneaking along this woodlot, and the bigger one, which was a 9-point, was standing in the field, and right at the edge of the field. And I had kept a cedar tree between us, and I slipped in as close as I could. And I don't know, maybe I was 30 or 35 yards, and I proceeded to shoot my quiver dry and didn't touch a hair on the deer's body. I shot all the arrows I had.
Yeah.
Now, back at home, I had a couple of broadheads back home, but I didn't have any more arrows, and I couldn't find them in that high grass. And of course, the deer just loped off. It wasn't too upset. And there was an archery shop in the area where I grew up that had just opened. I heard that there was this archery shop, and I didn't even have a driver's license at the time. And I begged my mother to take me over there so I could get some arrows. She didn't want to do it. She had other things to do, but I guess she finally relented, and she took me there. And it turned out to be a place called Addington's Bowhunter Shop. And I've dealt with them for 40 some years.
Yeah.
They were very good to me. They always kept me in good equipment, always kept me in good arrows. Anyway, at the time, all I could afford were 2 arrows. And they, that was it. It just wasn't in the cards for me to get anything other than those 2 arrows. And even though I was only spending $8 or $10 probably at the time, they treated me like everybody else, and that started that relationship. Well, fast forward. The following Friday, Ronnie killed the 7-point that was with him, and we went to check the deer in at the local gas station. And as was customary at the time, a lot of guys would hang around there in the evening to see what came in. And Ronnie brought his in, and I was with him, and he was very proud of it, as he should have been. And guys were kind of giving me a hard time. Hey, well, I thought you were a deer hunter, and where's your deer? And I took a chance. I said, guys, you guys come back here tomorrow night at this same time, and I'll show you a deer. And I was just hoping,
Yeah.
Next morning, I was able to go out. That was Saturday, a week after I had missed the deer 6 times. And I was able to get it killed. And it was a 9-point. I look back on it now, it's maybe 128, 130-inch deer. But for the time in the area where I lived, that was a really, really significant deer.
Yeah, definitely. Do you
Fast forward to gun season in West Virginia at the time, you could have there was an archery tag, and there was a rifle tag. So in rifle season, I was carrying my bow, but I had another tag I could hunt, and I was out in some of the same area, and I ran across this guy in the woods. I don't know who he was, and we were talking just briefly, and he said, there was a young boy in here from Downton Winfield, and he killed a monster in here a couple weeks ago. I said, that was me. He goes, no. This guy was hunting with a bow, but it couldn't have been you. But it in fact was me.
Yeah.
And that property went on to produce other deer for me in the future. Ronnie and I stayed friends for a very long time, and Ronnie was able to kill some good deer out there too. We just had a really good opportunity out there. So anyway, that was that kind of put me on my way to larger deer at the time. I thought that was a large deer, and then years later, after college and all, and after having encountered the Wenzels, I was living in Ohio, working as an engineer, and I began to hunt some of the country out there, and I was able to kill what really then became, it was mid 140s, and to me that was just, I didn't know deer like that existed, and
Yeah.
then kind of went from there.
So you had a pretty cool start in bow hunting then. That's a cool story with the old bow. Behind me here is actually my grandfather's, Grandpa Springer's. I believe it's a Bear Puller LTD2. A little bit different from what you had said. It's really different compared to compound bows today. You can kind of see parts of the cable system and all that here. It's interesting. I've yet to pull it back. It's got cables and teardrops and stuff, so I'm a little bit frightened too. But this is the bow that my grandpa started with. This is the bow that my dad started shooting with, and now it's behind me here. So there's some cool history with this bow. But sounds
That's
like,
really neat.
yeah, these must have been pretty popular back then.
So there was another model. It was called the whitetail hunter.
Mm-hmm.
That was the much more common one.
Okay.
But the Polar LTD was like top of the line.
Really?
And oh yeah, and there were a lot more of those whitetail hunters sold because of the price point.
Mm-hmm.
But the Polar LT was the one. LTD was the one to have.
Huh. Yeah, I wonder what the IBO speed on one of these bows is rated at.
I'm going to guess somewhere around 180 feet per second, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I wonder if it would break 200.
I
Huh.
doubt it.
That'd be
Hey,
interesting. Yeah.
that brings me to something I was going to ask you about.
Okay.
So I met your dad a few years ago, and he and I were talking about deer hunting and other things. And I mentioned at the time it was called Train to Hunt to him, some events that I was involved with a few years back, several years back.
Okay.
And then I transitioned over to Total Archery Challenge. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I know your dad is quite an archer, but has quite a history of competitive archery in the past. And I
Yes.
think he'd been away from the sport for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Though he hunted, I don't think he shot competitively for a while. And he and I were talking about archery and how much fun it was when we were younger and coming up. And he said, that might be something Mason would be interested in. And I think shortly thereafter, he may have come home and asked you about archery. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, so how I got into it was kind of interesting. I will say I started shooting to be a bow hunter. I've shot a bow since I was little. I mean, just a little fiberglass string bow, whatever it was. And we'd shoot at 5 yards in the backyard. I do remember hearing stories about Dad had taken me to a local event at one of the clubs around here. I can't remember which club exactly, but I might have been 4 or 5 years old. And I went and stepped up to about 3 or 4 yards from every target, and flung an arrow. And then at the end, we'd all gathered around, and they're handing out awards for the different classes. And then we got to the very end, and they called my name, and Dad's like, "Get on up there!" So I ran up there and grabbed a little a medal, and from what I've heard, I was very attached to that thing for about the next week. Like, I wanted to sleep with it and everything. So I guess that was kind of my first competitive archery event, if that's what you want to call it. But the I've been shooting. I'd shot maybe 100 arrows a year, if that, for several years, and then probably 4 years ago is when I started doing it seriously. So we were never much of a sports family. Like, we never watched basketball, football, anything like that. We were never really interested in it. And I knew I needed to do a sport, right? Like, I'm interested in doing physical, hard things. Hunting is very physical, can be very tough at sometimes, and I enjoyed that, and I knew that I needed to do something. The thought kind of went through my head there for probably 6 months of doing basketball, and then COVID hit, and that threw off several things, and so I never ended up playing basketball. But about that time, I was probably in 7th grade. We were all sitting on the couch in the living room, and We're talking about, man, what should Mason do? We were all talking as a family, and Mom came up with the idea of, well, maybe you should get back into archery because Dad had started archery, shooting a bow when he was 12, maybe somewhere around there, and then he shot competitively all throughout high school and beyond that even. And he won some national events, podium at some world events. He was pretty high up there in his class. At the time, it was compound fingers. And so he had a pretty good history in target archery, hunting. He went to the ATA show for many years. And then there's kind of a drought. I guess that came along when me and my sister came along, and he got out of archery. And then where the story picks back up is Dad had thought about it for that night. He'd slept on it for maybe a day or two. And he said, you know what, maybe that's a good idea to get back into archery. So sure enough, we did. Started out on the back porch, put a target at 10 yards, and he taught me some form, and then we started going into the local bow shop, which actually you've been there, David, Fairfield Outdoors in Lancaster. And
Great facility and great people.
yes, and every Tuesday night we would go in there and shoot spots throughout the winter, and that's kind of how I started. You walk in there and there's a bunch of these, grown men shooting the bullseye every time, and my eyes are this big, like, how in the world am I ever going to compete here? And then over time, I lost a lot. I lost a lot of times, and it was over a year until I finally started getting a little competitive with those guys. But that's kind of how I started. It's been pretty fun, and archery has been for me. Something that unlike any other, like even hunting. Archery has done a lot for me. I've been able to meet so many different people that I never would have met. I've been able to learn things and experience things that I really wouldn't have found anywhere else, like basketball or any school sport. It's been really unique. I get to talk to guys like you, David, and have a podcast. Like that's pretty cool to me, and I think I'm on a cool path. But yeah, archery definitely started that, and but like I said, eventually, my original goal was just to be able to shoot a bow and be proficient at it for bow hunting, and then that kind of evolved into a sport. But that love for bow hunting is around, and it always will be.
So, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple things. What was that
Yeah.
event you shot in Columbus, Ohio recently? What was that?
So that was called the Buckeye Classic. It was a United States archery team event. Um, and it's hosted by USA Archery, which is an organization that focuses on target style archery, I would call it. They don't do a lot of 3D, that type of stuff. It's very most of the events are like spot targets. But the USAT series, most of those events are held in my division, the compound division, at 50 meters, shooting at a spot target faced. 50 meters is about 55 yards, somewhere around there. And you shoot 70 arrows, score it, and it's pretty basic. And then the next day you'll go into eliminations. So recently, and I guess not super recently now, it's been a few months, but they announced this year that compound bows are going into the Olympics, which is going to change the sport a good bit, I believe.
I think so.
Historically, recurve bows have been in the Olympics for many years, over 100 years, and the introduction of compound bows is going to be really interesting because I think they realize that there are a lot of people that shoot compound bows, and that that there's definitely a demographic there that the Olympics can take advantage of, and so that's going to be really cool. I think that the Olympics is going to be really interesting here in 2028, LA, and my goal has been since they announced that to go to the trials and make the Olympic team for USA. That's been my goal, and it kind of starts with that USAT stuff. So from what I've heard, they're going to hold the Olympics in that 50-meter format. Nothing's official yet. I'm not sure. It's just rumor on the street. But that's kind of what they're doing. So I've been hitting the 50-meter hard, and I decided that I was going to shoot the Buckeye Classic, which was mid-July. It's in Dublin, Ohio, just about an hour from my house, so super easy to get there and get home. Kind of just a quick little weekend trip, but it's a national event, right? So there's people from all over the country, and even some international folks there. But it's a really nice event, nice venue. Kind of uppity, I will say. You're not allowed to wear camo, stuff like that. But I guess that's target archery. So about 23 days before the event, um, we're like, I need to shoot this event because that's going to get me kick-started. It's pretty much the last event of the year that I was able to go to, and so my thoughts were do that, get a kickstart, get a feel for it, and then next season I'm going to hit it hard. So summer of 26, I'm going to be going to a lot more USAT style events and really training hard for Olympic style archery over these next couple years. But at the Buckeye, I made a series, and it was actually pretty popular on my social platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and it was called the Bullseyes at the Buckeye series. That lasted about 25.
That was leading up to the event, right?
Yes, about 23 days prior to the event, I started the series, and I made a video every day about how I was preparing for it. And I mean, Dad's like, at first it wasn't. It seemed almost not feasible for me to attend this event and be competitive because I didn't have the right arrows. I really didn't know what my setup should be for that style of event. I was lucky enough to get some advice from several different people, get dialed in, get my bow tuned better than it has ever been tuned before, and I really put in some work. I mean, I shot for several hours each day, and when I wasn't shooting, I was thinking about shooting or working on my bow or something. I mean, I spent a lot of time in preparation for that event, and I made a video every day about some of the things that I was working on. But at that event, I ended up finishing third place, which is really awesome at a national event. I mean, I was looking at the kids I was standing next to. I'm like, these are, the best in the country. These are the best of the best. And, I'm right here with them at my first event. So that was really cool. I think I'm really looking forward to next year's USAT series. That's going to be really fun, something I'm really looking forward to. But, yeah, and then
So
going in.
I asked you about that event because I was aware of your aspirations, and I thought we could turn the conversation that direction a little bit. But let me just say, I hope you don't mind, but Mason, I've been around you quite a lot in the last few years, and you are a young man who can do virtually anything you set your mind to, whether it's this podcast, whether it's your archery, your academic work, the manufacturing that you're doing, the businesses you're involved with. And so I'm sure that you will apply that same diligence to this archery endeavor that you do to all these others. And I think you'll do well. The other thing I wanted to tell you is when you mentioned that first archery tournament that you went to as a little boy, I think you said you maybe were 5. So I was traveling the day that the Buckeye Classic was going on in Ohio. I knew it was going on over there, and I made sure that I took a couple of hours to come over by the event. I don't think you knew I was coming. Anyway, your dad and I were sitting back behind the line. We were watching you shoot, and our conversation turned to, the past. And he told me the same exact story that you just related on this podcast.
Really?
About how you went forward and won that medal. And he also said that you slept with it for the next week or so and could hardly ever get it away from you. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you that as you move through archery, whether it's Olympics or hunting or other target venues, some other discipline, or in life in general, you've got the ability to do anything you set your mind to, Mason. So hang on and keep that up.
Yeah, I appreciate that, David. And that support from others, that's big. I mean, that's been a big part of what's helped me, be successful and continue that drive to I mean, keep doing stuff. I mean, there's a lot of kids out there that don't have the amazing support that I have, and I'll be forever grateful for that. But it's definitely helped.
In my opinion, you know, people like to help people that help themselves. You work hard. If you weren't out there doing your part, I don't think the support system would be as enthusiastic about helping. But you are out there
Yeah,
working hard and improving and have come such a long way in such a short amount of time. We all see that, and that's why people want to help and try to support your efforts. And
yeah,
you've earned that support along the way. That's what
yeah,
it is.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that, David. And one thing that comes to mind when you say that is here a couple weeks ago, I was kind of in a um, between a it was kind of a sticky situation, business wise. I had to make a big decision, and I was able to kind of consult lots of my different friends, including you, and I mean get all those opinions. And I spent many hours on the phone, talking to all these guys that have been there, done that, and that were willing to share all that information with me. And that helped me a ton just recently. But yeah, I think surrounding yourself with people that can help you and have experience. And I mean, like I said, through archery, I've met tons of people like yourself that I was able to talk to, and it's definitely going to be a community that I'll forever be in and make lifelong friends in.
So your friend Kurt from the bow shop,
Yes.
you guys obviously do some things together away from the bow shop with your businesses and things like that. But I thought it was really cool of him. Didn't he win his class over at Lancaster a couple years back?
Yes, he is a very very good shooter in his class. I believe he shoots in the super senior, which is over 60 division. Yes, he did win Lancaster, which is one of the most prestigious tournaments in America. Indoor season January is about the time of year, but yeah, that was a very very big accomplishment for him.
Well, I thought it was really cool at the time when he was being honored for winning his class. He brought you up as his quote coach, I think, and you were
Yes.
there at his side during that event. And I think it was just another way of folks saying how much they appreciate all that you do and how hard you work, and giving you additional exposure to competition at a higher level.
Yes, yeah, he helped me out a lot. Dad knew him from 20 years ago, or whenever he was in the competition world. He knew him from the area, and when Dad and I got back into it, started going to the bow shop. Kurt was in there, and he was about the only guy that Dad still knew in there, other than the owners. But yeah, so we instantly made a connection, and he helped me. He's helped me a ton over the last several years. Shooting with and talking with. We've been to several events together. Yeah, he's definitely helped me along the way a good bit. And like I said, he's a really great archer in his class. He competes in the senior games. I believe that's every 2 years. He's done very well the last couple years. And yeah, he's really really awesome.
Well, it'll be very interesting with the support that you have through Kurt and your family, others, to see where you take all of this. So I commend you for the hard work you're putting into it. And it just seems like, on the outside looking in, it seems like you're a natural. But at the same time, I see the hard work you put in. So you became a natural through hard work, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I think it's not. I don't necessarily believe in like talent or anything like that. I think that everything can be taught as a skill. Whether that's archery or just determination in general. I think just about anything can be taught. But you got to have that learning mindset, though. I think that's key. But
Do you mind if I take this in just a little bit different direction and build on that a little bit?
Yeah.
So down the road, if you had to look at Mason Springer 10 years down the road, what do you see yourself doing?
That's a tough question. I've thought about it a good bit. I think that, let's see, 10 years, how old will I be? About 25.
Mm-hmm.
I think
You probably
that,
just have finished your undergrad at that point and be a year or two into some sort of career or additional education or something. But
yeah,
knowing you, you'll have a couple of businesses going on at the same time also. What
yeah.
do you see yourself?
I mean, it's hard to say where I will necessarily be as far as school, business, that type of stuff at that point. I think that in archery, I've got a little bit better view of what that could look like. Um, I would say in 10 years, I mean, I can do a lot in 10 years. I've been shooting for 4 years and have made exponential growth. And I think that in 10 years, I can be shooting, at my peak and possibly even less than that. So, as far as archery, I assume I would switch to pro class as soon as soon as I need to, and then as far as like hunting, I would hope that I'm able to uh, have the time or make the time to continue hunting and shooting as much as I do, which that would be a main goal for me as far as how I structure my life is making sure I have the time to do those things that I enjoy, and hopefully I'm able to um, not only do them as an enjoyment like hobby, but I'm also to make a little bit of income off of that. That's the only way to be sustainable in archery, I guess. So that's kind of where I see myself as far as that. I mean, business, college, I don't necessarily have a defined route right now. I think it's gonna it could definitely change a good bit over the next several years. I'm a freshman in high school or a sophomore in high school right now, and just started sophomore year, and so I'm starting along the college path, looking at stuff like that. I'm taking like college credit classes in high school, which actually you helped me a lot to get to with Jamie Dickinson, um, and that's been really
Jamie's a
interesting.
tremendous resource also, and a big supporter of you. So
Yes, yes. But
she's really a tremendous resource to have in your corner.
yeah, she's helped me a lot academically and business wise. I mean,
Yeah,
um,
she's quite the entrepreneur herself.
yes, I mean, initially I was a little bit skeptical. Jamie's a college advisor or a tutor. I mean, she's many things, but I've thought that she would just be another high school counselor. That's kind of my initial thoughts before meeting her, but I was quite wrong. She's a very avid businesswoman, and she knows a ton about colleges and stuff like that. She's been able to help me out a ton in that area, but business as well. I mean, being into business as much as she is, she's been able to give me some good advice there too.
I think Kate, your sister, has seen some of the things that you and Jamie have done together, and I think she's now involved too, isn't she?
Yes, yes. Kate has been set up with her for probably a month now. I'd say I think she's had a meeting or two, and she's really enjoying it. But yeah, Jamie Dickinson, that's a good one to look up online. I might even have her on the podcast at some point. She's a great talker. She's fun to talk
That
to.
would be great if you could get her on the podcast. Hey, now I really wanted to build on what we were talking about to something else that I know that you were involved in recently. Your family purchased a piece of property and made some improvements to that, some different programs, etc. And it looked to me like, watching from the outside looking in, you were kind of the project manager on the whole deal. Is that accurate?
Uh, some parts maybe. I'd say a lot of it was Dad. And actually, I talked with Jake Hofer on this a little bit in a previous episode. But yeah, I'd say that I was in charge of some parts of it. I've been the only one to hunt the property so far. We've had it for I'd say 2 years now, 2 hunting seasons, and I've been the only one to hunt it so far. So that's been I've been able to see very significant change in what we've done before, or how the property was when we purchased it, and then what it is now as far as whitetail, movement, habitat, all that stuff. It's got a totally different feel to it than it was previously. We've gotten rid of lots of invasives. We've planted over 800 trees and shrubs and all kinds of stuff. The property has definitely gotten so much better for wildlife and has made a huge difference in the hunting. And that was just the first year, believe it or not. That was just the first year of improvement. Made a huge difference. I'm very interested to see what it's going to be like this season. And
I've seen videos of your whole family out there being involved, but
yeah,
I'm most impressed by the fact that there were different times. One, you had a dozer out there, and you were showing them where to clear out some food plots and push trees over into some windrows, etc. And then I think there was another time you were putting in a large culvert, creek
yep,
crossing. Looked to me like you were the eyes and ears on the project when your dad had to be at work at his regular job to
yes.
make things go out there. So not everybody gets an opportunity to have that kind of experience either. That's just one more thing that you can put in one more experience you can put into your tool bag.
Yes, yes, and I've always been pretty hands-on projects like that. I'd say the first big one for my sister and I were probably the barn I'm in right now. We had a pole barn shell built, and then the family finished the whole inside of it. Insulated, put up the ceilings and the walls and everything, and that was quite the task. It took us a long time, and there was a lot of learning involved. Dad had done construction. He's a civil engineer by trade, but he had done construction stuff, and he knew how most of that worked. But my sister and I really learned a ton doing that project, and I think that's really where I got my, I guess, analytical, mechanical mindset. Like, I think that the problem solving involved with that project really got me kickstarted into future projects like the bulldozer thing, and actually the bulldozer thing was interesting. Kind of a sidetrack here. We were clearing all those food plots out, clearing all the brush that we had dropped, and there's kind of a spot that was pooling down in this creek bottom, and there's a spot that was pooling water, and it was getting stagnant, which is not good for things like EHD. So the bulldozer was down there, and I'm like, push a trench out to the body of water, and let that drain a little bit and flow. And that's definitely improved that whole food plot area down there. But and then the culvert and stuff, running that, it was pretty fun. Felt like
It was work, but it looked like you were enjoying it.
yes, and the whole everything we've done down there has been a lot of work. And from all the trees that we've cleared and the trees that we've planted, and the thought process behind a lot of this stuff. Like, I've really analyzed the movement of deer, from different places on that property, from the neighbors and back and forth, and Dad did a lot of the research on how to improve the property. Like, he would listen to the Land podcast with Jake Hofer, as well as many other resources out there, and he would kind of communicate that information to me, and now I've got a very good understanding of what he knows, and we collaborate on a lot of different plans, drawing this up, that up, coming up with different scenarios. If we put a food plot here, what would happen versus over here, stuff like that. So it's a lot of problem solving, a lot of interesting stuff, but yes, I think
But
that
the overall plan that you guys put together incorporates not just whitetail habitat. There's opportunity for pollinators out there, and to manage erosion control and all sorts of things that
oh
are
yes,
benefit to all sorts of wildlife, not just white-tailed deer. And then you mentioned the big shop you guys built. That is a really cool place out there, and I like the radiant heat in the floor and all that. But the kitchen area over to the side, I've seen you man that stove a time or two also. And
Yes.
so your talents extend in many different areas.
Yes, I do like to cook a little bit. We've got a Traeger out back and a stove, and I do like to cook. Specifically wild game, that's mainly what I do. I'll cook anything from Michigan lake trout to Alaska salmon to bluegill from the farm pond, and then I'll do shrimp, and then we've done some roast off of deer, elk, all types of stuff. But yeah, it's very interesting, very fun. But I do like to cook. And then the barn, it's actually probably the most useful thing about it, and probably the biggest regret at the same time is shooting. Right. So we built the barn about a year before we got back into shooting. The standard distance for most target archery, at least indoor stuff, is 20 yards. If you can shoot 20 yards inside, you've got it made. That's what most bow shops are, what most archery ranges are, 20 yards. That's a good distance to start. And I can get 20 yards if I shoot diagonal across the barn and I stand about a foot off of the fridge and then have the target set up on the workbench in the other corner. And I can get 20 yards, which I'm very fortunate for. It's very handy during the winter to be able to practice. But I think if we were to build it again, we'd build it about 4 or 8 feet longer.
So I knew when you started that that's probably where you were going with that regret. Your dad expressed the same thing to me. If you guys had just moved that one wall out for maybe 2 to 4 more feet, you could shoot across the barn instead of diagonally across the barn. So
Yes.
anyway, it is a great facility, and you guys make use of it as a family and with the rest of us in a lot of different ways. So
Yeah.
that's it's really cool.
One of my favorite ways that we use it is we've got a cargo trailer that we kind of converted into a camper, added solar and bunk beds and stuff inside, and it's really nice. But during deer season, Dad and I will wake up at 4:30, sometimes even 3:30 to go out hunting, and we always get complaints from sister and mom. Oh, you're waking us up. It's too early. So the last couple years, we've been coming out to the barn and sleeping in the trailer, then heading into we've got a finished shower and bathroom out here, and we pretty much live out here during deer season. And we can cook and eat and sleep and everything out here, and not bother anything that's going on in the house. So that's kind of what we do for deer season. But that's one
really
of my
cool.
favorite ways to use the building.
That's really neat. So tell me about some of your hunting plans for the fall. You were asking me. I'm anxious to hear about your plans. Have you located a good target buck yet?
So we've had some cameras out, and a lot of the properties that we've hunt historically are rut spots. Most of them, the bucks, typically the mature bucks, will summer on neighboring properties or nearby farms, and then kind of move through our area during the rut. So when I decided that my plan this year was to harvest early in the season. That way, I had more time to shoot bows in December, and even into November. And so my plan was early season bedding feeding pattern, which is going to be tough on this property. On these properties, we're trying out a couple different ones, and we've been running cameras, and it's been mostly what we expected. Younger bucks, lots of does. And then on one property, there is a more mature buck. He's got a very unique rack. And I think that we will, that might end up being a shooter. I guess we haven't got quite enough good pictures to tell, get an age or anything like that. But that could be a potential deer. But I mean, historically, like I don't know if Dad has ever gotten a deer that he has shot on camera previously. Like we really do not
Is that
run
right?
that many cameras. Yeah, I think. Uh,
Your dad has been very, he's worked hard and been very fortunate to harvest lots of really very quality whitetails, um, as well as some elk, but very quality whitetails, particularly there near your home. And whenever I first saw that Cribs episode that was done a few years back, and then the extended podcast version of that, your dad was talking and showing some of the mounts and the racks that he has. And, man, I tell you, if you guys decide a target buck for the Springer family is would be a target buck for anybody, as far as I'm concerned.
yes, definitely.
You guys have high standards.
Yes. Last year I passed up about one or two too many deer, I think, that I regret. But they ended up making it to this year, so that's good. They're getting a little bit more age on them. But I think that in Ohio, that's a big part of deer hunting. The parcels here are so small, compared to like what's out in Kansas. You're talking about the Bootsy buck. Um, like, I mean, I would be so hesitant to let a buck walk like that, or whatever you would classify Bootsy as. And that would, I mean, just because of the neighbors, and that's the biggest thing around here. But I mean, Dad and I have always been one to pass up a deer if he's not old enough, but it's the neighbors that have not been great for us. But however, they have been getting better. I will say, the neighbors have been getting better. There's been more mature bucks in there lately, which has been great. That's been very good, and it's starting to become more frequent, which is always awesome. I think that buck management, age developing that age class is one of the most important things in Ohio, at least.
Um, you know, everybody wants to shoot a nice buck, but everybody's definition of a nice buck is usually different. Now, there are some, when you look at them, you say, no doubt. Yes, absolutely. But one of the things that I've experienced in Kansas is some folks will come out, and I was this way when I first went out there too, and it's hard not to be this way. But 125 or 130 inch deer will come through. He's maybe 2.5, or 3 years old in some
Mm-hmm.
cases, and oftentimes he's the largest buck the person has ever seen on the hoof in their life,
Yeah.
and it's hard to lay off that buck. And I never fault anybody one for whatever they might shoot, but with Bootsy, I was fortunate in that Bootsy lived most of his life, or its life, on about 1,000 acres that I control, and
Mm-hmm.
it would it would stray off occasionally, and I know that it would occasionally get on some property to the west. They were kind enough after I harvested the deer to share some trail cam pictures from previous years with me, but by and large, that deer lived. I don't know. Maybe 80% might be high. I don't know, but I think he lived about 80% of his time on that 1,000 acres, and so therefore, and I control that, and so if people knew that at the time that Bootsy was there, I might have had a problem with trespassers. But where there's enough activity on the property between ranching and me being in and out of there and other folks that it's pretty protected. And the deer get an opportunity to express their full genetic potential and do the things that deer do. So when you do see a deer, it's usually very undisturbed. And but then once again, I have the challenge that sometimes folks will see a deer that I would really like to see make another year or two or three, and again, it's the largest deer that they've ever seen on the hoof in their life, and I can understand why they would want to shoot it.
Yeah, yeah. There's many people like in the South, and like up in Michigan and those states where they just don't get the antler size that we get here in Ohio, Kansas, Iowa, these states, and like you say, they see that 130-inch deer, and that's the biggest deer they've ever seen. And if that's the biggest deer you've ever seen, by all means, take that deer. But it's coming back to Ohio knowing that there's that Boone and Crockett class deer walking around somewhere, and then still taking that 130-inch deer the second, third, fourth time. I think that in a lot of cases, not all cases, that is not necessarily ideal for the age diversity, age class of that herd.
So your dad has a theory. I think it's more than just a theory, but your dad has a theory about the area that's glaciated when the ice age moved through
Yes.
and left behind mountains that intersect with flat plains or plateaus, and ag on the flat and woods on the mountains, and that being the kind of the demarcation for big bucks. And a couple years ago, one of the national magazines actually uncovered a similar thread, and they were showing this whitetail line, two whitetail lines. And if you look at Boone and Crockett bucks and Pope and Young buck entries into the books, and you come across the country, there's a definitive line that comes from somewhere up around the Dakotas, somewhere down through and across the Midwest and into Ohio. There's another definitive line that seems to come out of the northern, I don't know, maybe Adirondacks down through into Ohio. And the odd thing was, I plotted that line, as did others, and those two lines intersected within a few miles of your house. So
Yes.
you guys are ideally located, historically speaking, in a big buck mecca. And
Yes.
you all take really advantage of it. You provide habitat and cover and food, excuse me, habitat and food, and try to give those deer some opportunity to really mature. And I think that those deer you were talking about passing last year, if they made it through, they'll be just that much better this year. So you
Yes.
guys keep up the great work.
Yes, I think that the area that we're in definitely has some good, very good potential just naturally, the way it is. Like you say, it's got a very good mix of ag and cover and habitat. Um, but what we've kind of learned from what we've learned about a lot of the habitat stuff is in a place like this is you have to account for um, what is the neighbors? How can you make your property better than the neighbors? And that's hard to do in an area like ours. One of the main things that we have found the deer are lacking is cover in our area, and so we made an emphasis. We put an emphasis on making sure that our property had plenty of cover for deer, making sure that those mature bucks and even does, fawns can feel safe on our property, and ideally safer than neighboring properties too. And then as well as making sure that they've got a good food source, etc. But yeah, so I think that's super important. In any area you're in is making sure that your property is that the deer want to be on your property more than they want to be on the neighbors or other properties.
Have you guys seen any evidence of EHD out there near your place?
So that's a good question. I actually looked at a map. I believe the ODNR posts a map. That's the Division of Wildlife in Ohio. They post a map. I want to say once a week, once every other week of EHD, and it has been picking up a little bit over the last month, I would say, and I might be wrong, but I think there's some places down in southeast Ohio. There's certain hot spots if you look at those maps, but I don't think that our area is very bad right now. Like I have not seen any evidence of EHD locally to me. Those maps may say otherwise, but I know it was pretty bad last summer. We had quite the drought here in Ohio and other Midwest states too, but that harmed the AHD or that harmed the deer population a little bit. Mostly targeting those mature bucks and bucks with velvet, and even some does too. But
I heard Morgan County was hit pretty hard, And then I've heard just today that Meigs County and some of the area over around Athens was hit especially, or is being hit especially hard with EHD.
Really?
Jake, our friend Jake Hofer had Bobby Warner on a couple of times, and Bobby is a landowner over in that area. I haven't talked to Bobby in a little while, but I don't know if I'm guessing his farms could potentially have been affected. But I've been told that southeastern Ohio area is right now is being hit very hard with EHD.
Yes. Yeah, it's not ideal. From what I've heard, some of it can come from cattle, and I know that some ranchers actually in more western states than Ohio, mainly, they medicate their cattle for EHD, and I don't know exactly how it all works, but basically somehow that disease gets transferred over to deer. I guess deer that are closer to cattle populations are more likely to contract EHD. But I think there's some stuff that cattlemen can do, and I'm not super educated on the subject, but I know that cattle have some effect to it, and of course, drought areas where deer are more concentrated over, smaller, possibly stagnant water sources, that's got a big role in it.
I believe the disease is spread by a midge that is often found in small stagnant water holes, especially this time of year. And yes, you are correct. There are a lot of folks in the commercial cattle industry that are trying to do things to inoculate or help medicate their stock. One of the things that I have tried to use in the whitetail side of the coin is there's an additive that farmers can add to cattle feed to make them more tick resistant. I believe it has some copper content in it, and
Okay.
the copper somehow or another causes the ticks not to be quite as bad. And I've seen, you've probably seen some videos that have circulated in recent weeks on the internet of some doe fawns or some fawns that were just eaten up by ticks. And then I've seen on trail cameras a lot of the deer have had a lot of ticks around their ears and things. And I believe because that blood flow effect enters the antler through a membrane and arteries and veins underneath that velvet, I believe that an abundance of ticks can have a negative effect on the development of rack of an antler because of blood being siphoned off and potentially nutrients being siphoned off by those ticks up around the head area. And
Yeah.
I think it's prudent. I wish someone could come up with a widespread, effective answer to EHD, and then as a side note, something would also be a positive effect on ticks on deers
Yeah.
on deer. Excuse me, deer.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, so I did learn deers is a real word.
Oh, it
It's
is.
yes, it's actually to be used when there are multiple species of deer in an area,
Oh,
which is
okay.
fairly uncommon. But if there, I don't know, do you know of any regions where there are different species of deer in the same place?
Actually, I do. There are parts of Arizona where coos deer and mule deer overlap. There are
Okay.
parts of Idaho where mule deer and whitetails. I think other parts of the West too, where mule deer and whitetail will occasionally overlap. And I know of someone in Arizona who claims to have seen a hybrid that was a cross between a whitetail and a mule deer.
Hmm.
And then I think maybe over in Maryland, in the far panhandle of West Virginia, there are a few of the Sitka blacktails that could cohabitate in an area where whitetails are. So I guess in that case, the use of deers would be prudent.
Yeah, yeah. From what I know, that's what I've heard. But yeah, I think it's the same with like fishes too. Like there's lots of fishes in the ocean.
Sure.
But yeah, so interesting vocabulary. But well, it's getting late here. I've got school tomorrow. I appreciate you coming on, Dave. We had a good conversation. Hit some cool topics, some hot topics. Hit some pretty cool stuff. But yeah, it's been fun. I was looking forward to this podcast for a while. I think it'll be a great listen.
Mason, thanks very much for inviting me to come on. Once again, I want to commend you on all the hard work that you've been putting in, and look forward to seeing what the future brings. So thanks for
Yes.
having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, David. Awesome. Well, we'll see you next time. I don't know where it'll be or when it will be, but it'll be some cool place. Um, well, I'm
With
gonna.
me, it might be anywhere.
Yes, anywhere, anywhere. Well, I appreciate it, David. We'll log off here and talk next time.
Thanks. Good night, Mason.